Impossible for me to rationalize spending corporate money on a luxurious hotel, despite the fact that I was the owner of the business. Both the room and the bed were quite soft and comfortable. The exact thing I required. My wants are straightforward, and I am a common person. I instantly checked Jenna's phone tracker as soon as I entered the room, and I found out that she was still at home, or at least her phone was. Sleep was difficult to come by that evening. It was impossible for me to stop thinking about her acts and the reasons behind them. I don't understand how she could rationalize her affair, especially on the day of our wedding, and then continue it for an unknown amount of time. The marriage that we have started to analyze, even if it was never flawless, I believed in the love that we shared exclusively. Now I have come to the conclusion that it was a mistake from the very beginning. During the first few years after the wedding, things did not go as to plan. To be honest, we did not immediately anticipate the arrival of a baby. When we first started thinking about starting a family, we intended to wait between 3 and 4 years. Prior to getting married, we had reached a consensus that we would have 3 children. The arrival of Carrie, however, caused these preparations to be derailed. Upon discovering that my closest friend was the one responsible for this interruption, it appeared as though all of my efforts were in vain. Although the enjoyable times we had shared were eclipsed by this revelation, it appeared as though 14 years of labor had been lost. In the event that Jenna had not been involved with George, it is possible that she would have conceived with me. It is possible that her pregnancy would have been less problematic, and that we would not have had a child who was so difficult to raise, which would have led her to not want to have any more children. On the day before we were going to get married, George seduced the woman who would eventually become my wife. At this point, he provides her with entertainment at least twice a month, all the while most likely making fun of me, the pole of ignorance. With the intention of calming myself down and falling asleep, I laid down and thought to myself that he must face the consequences of his actions. In order to avoid a night of sleeplessness, I needed to regain my composure. I decided to watch a dumb comedy show, so I switched on the television. Laughter helped me relax my tensions, and by 11 o'clock, I was ready to go to sleep, even though I knew I had a busy day ahead. Of me. We had no problems with the auction. During my time in the Albuquerque area, I was able to network with dealers and get some good automobiles at prices that were acceptable. Due to the fact that I did not find any Miatas at the auction, I contacted other dealers. One of them was red and the other was black. Both of them had something. While I waited for confirmation of my client's desired color, I had the opportunity to negotiate potential deals. Obviously, both dealers concurred, and they assured me that they would handle the transaction after I gave information about the automobiles that were located on my lot. I ought to have been more frequent in my attendance at this auction. My interactions with other business people operating in the same sector not only motivated me to extend my operations but also served as a pleasant distraction from the difficulties I was experiencing in my personal life. In the later part of the afternoon, when I was meeting with the attorney, I received news that was not encouraging. For the sake of a child who was not even mine, I was threatened with the loss of 50% of my assets, in addition to alimony and child support payments. At that same instant, I made the decision to not go through with a divorce. Instead, I made the decision to leave her with George's child while I paid off the mortgage on the property before I left. The fact that my name is the only one on the mortgage would prevent her from selling the property, even if she decided to stay there. It would be impossible for her to resign and claim the house if she continued to pay the taxes and utilities even while she was living somewhere else. Having said that, I was currently faced with a decision about my company. Despite the fact that it was registered as a corporation, I had a hunch that if I did not ensure that it was well protected, I would end up losing it. It became a top priority for me to consult with my business attorney. I informed Jenna of my exhaustion upon my arrival home, having been completely and utterly exhausted following a tough day. I am exhausted. As I made my way to the bedroom, I whispered to myself that I was going to take a shower and then go to bed. "Would you like to have dinner?" she made inquires. I responded by saying that I had a late lunch. At least she was concerned enough to inquire about it. The shower was a wonderful experience. It felt as if all of my problems were being washed away. I found comfort in coming up with solutions, even while the problems continued to exist. Sleep engulfed me just a few minutes after my head found its way onto the pillow. Despite the fact that the previous week had been hectic, I was eventually able to find mental relief by putting a plan into action. After getting up early and feeling refreshed, I made my way to the workplace before Jenna and Carrie had a chance to wake up. While I was there, I was surrounded by spreadsheets and financial reports, and I was planning my future steps. After providing Paul with an update on the 23 car transactions, I told Anna to stop delegating work to George and emphasized the need of maintaining confidentiality. Inquisitively, she looked at me. "You're the boss," she thought to herself. When I needed some guidance, I called my company attorney around 9 o'clock in the morning. "Your company is registered, but she might still force a sale to claim half of its value I brought to my attention. It is my pleasure, Anna. You are of enormous value. Take into consideration selling in advance, he advised with a suggestion. I am unable to. I answered. It's my life for sure. The news really touched home. In the same way that I would raise a child, I had invested a lot of sweat and tears into creating my business. My thoughts were bitter in contrast to Carrie's. As a seasoned businessman, I was aware of the need to compartmentalize my emotions in order to prevent anger from consuming me once more. I refocused my attention on the business agenda I had. The first step was to get in touch with Doug, who verified George's assertions. I am Kurt Kaminsky, and I am. Doug. I have information about 2 Miatas, one in red and one in black, that you might be interested in. Are you still interested? In the event that the price is reasonable, he responded. The color that you like best is. Take a look at both of them. We will perform the calculations subsequently. Even if we are unable to reach a consensus, I am confident that I will be able to sell it. What is your choice? It was a press. A bold statement can be made with red, but it fades more quickly. The color black is sophisticated, yet it gets very hot here. Do you intend to stockpile it? Certainly, he confirmed. So, the color is red. When would you be available to meet? Is it Monday or Tuesday? Ideal, please phone me when you arrive. A deal. I hung up the phone and then called the dealer who was selling the red Miata in order to negotiate a trade. He expressed interest in the BMW that had been sitting on my lot for 3 months, but he understood that it would be more advantageous to sell it in a larger city. In the meantime, George arrived with a number of automobiles that were still waiting to be repaired. In spite of the fact that I was harboring resentment toward him, his adaptable schedule was suitable for my requirements as an independent contractor. The program was something that George inquired about after he overheard salesmen mentioning the imminent arrival of 23 automobiles. What's up, Kurt? When are these automobiles from the auction going to be delivered? He said. Could you help me plan out my repairs? The delivery will be handled by the auction house, most likely by the end of the following week, or early the following week, I informed him in a curt manner. Although I was struggling to maintain my composure in the presence of this traitor, I was able to suppress a chuckle as he departed. Over the duration of that weekend, I maintained a sense of separation from Jenna by engaging in yard work and running errands. Checking her phone tracker was no longer a source of concern for me. I harbored nothing but disdain for her. The act of being obligated to nurture the child of another man was inexcusable. I was once again in attendance at the vehicle exhibition on Monday. In lieu of the BMW, I acquired the Miata, traveling to Albuquerque to finalize the transaction. The dealer recommended that we visit a restaurant for lunch following your arrival. I informed Anna that I would be unavailable for the entire day and provided her with instructions to supervise the residents. She assured I have it, boss, thereby illustrating her dependability in a substantial manner. It was time for a pay raise. We had a pleasant experience during the excursion and lunch, and we formed a new friendship with the dealer. The wind caressed my hair as I drove back in the Miata, and I relished the sensation of liberation. I resolved to invest an additional sum of money and acquire a black automobile, acknowledging that I did not require a vehicle with more than 2 passengers. In a flaming red sports car that I had driven, I arrived at our residence shortly thereafter. While Jenna was gazing out the window, she conversed with Carrie, which led to both of them exiting the building to observe the situation. Honey, what is the reason for your desire to acquire this vehicle? She stated in a contemptuous tone that we need something that is reserved for Carrie. I had recently returned from Albuquerque, where I had acquired it for a client. I replied that I believed you would be interested in taking a ride. Jenna's tone was tinged with disdain as she responded, No, honey. I'm not a fan of small cars, I yelled out and gestured for my child to accompany us. I am already the target of enough derision due to my last name, you, Dad, are not. I certainly do not wish to be associated with a polished salesperson who specializes in used automobiles. Her remarks were painful to hear, as they were typical of the bluntness of a teenager. I was taken aback by the information. What was the cause of this disrespectful conduct? Upon a cursory examination of Jenna, I observed that she was disregarding Carrie's remarks as of no consequence. Both of the women who resided in my residence exhibited a contemptuous demeanor. Adolescents may not always maintain a robust relationship with their parents. However, her unpleasant demeanor prompted me to doubt the authenticity of my family life. As I shifted into reverse and departed, I announced that I would be returning shortly after taking another drive. I was propelled by a feeling of powerlessness as I navigated the Silver City highways until I reached my residence at approximately 9:30. I proceeded to shower and then proceeded to my bed after my immediate ascent to the upper floor. Jenna entered the room and illuminated my eyes while she awaited my exit from the shower. I closed my eyes as I exerted myself. Have you been consumed by self-pity as a result of our decision not to purchase a sports car? Is it not your intention to spend time with your family? She reprimanded you, asserting that you are not only polished but also immature. I was bewildered by the sudden shift in her demeanor. I was unable to escape the belief that George was the one responsible for it. It appears that her contempt for my ancestry was influenced by her time spent with him, and this attitude has now been transmitted to our child. Conversely, she was not even my niece. Despite my support for her, I was compelled to recognize that reality. I reacted in an angry manner. It appears that you and your daughter would prefer to go about your business without a pole around, so you might as well just leave already. Her demeanor did nothing but make me more angry. She is going to feel terrible about how she treated me. Thereafter, the atmosphere in the Kaminsky family became icy and silent. This continued for some time. I got in touch with Doug the next day, and he came over to make an inspection of the Miata. The news made him quite happy. Following the discussion of the statistics, he was pleasantly surprised by the extraordinary amount of money that he was given. 0 and 3. During the time that he was finishing up the paperwork that he described, my closest friend was in charge of procuring merchandise for the institution. Every 2 years we cycle approximately 16 vehicles. Although it might not seem like much, would you be able to talk to him? I responded that I am always pleased to do business with him, and that I will make sure he gets a good deal. I will make sure that Jim gets in touch with you before the week is up. As I mentioned, I am grateful. I was able to grow my company by cultivating positive relationships with individuals and demonstrating gratitude for the referrals they provided. The call came from my attorney on Wednesday. This is Kurt. I believe that I have a solution to the potential problem that you are experiencing. This afternoon, would you be able to come by and talk about it? In a word, yes, I can't wait to see how things go after a while. The tension in the house became intolerable. I was ecstatic to discover the concept during the subsequent meeting that occurred later that day. The execution process would require approximately 2 weeks, however. The effort would be well worth it if the outcome is successful. Over the course of 2 weeks, my personal belongings and tools were progressively transferred from my residence to an apartment in the vicinity. George was awaiting the arrival of the 20 automobiles to complete some work, but I continued to impede his progress. During the previous weekend, I was able to complete some yard work and clean out my wardrobe and drawers in the absence of Jenna and Carrie. Jenna was unaware that my wardrobe was entirely empty because she was conducting laundry during the week. This evokes memories of my visit to that location on Monday evening. When I informed Jenna that I was departing, she once again exhibited impolite and contemptuous behavior, concentrating on the fact that I am polished and work in the used car sales industry. I would typically spend 1 or 2 nights at a motel, depending on the situation, depending on my level of anger in the past. I was comparatively early when I arrived at the parking lot the following Tuesday morning. Afterward, I gathered all of my staff members in the meeting room. Despite the fact that it was a weekly gathering, nothing appeared to be unusual. I commenced good morning. I am confident that you are all aware that the automobiles I ordered a few weeks ago arrived yesterday afternoon. Each item has been inspected and prepared, and it is now prepared for sale. In this location, we will not employ George for any further duties. Inform him that we are proceeding in a different direction if he inquires about it. Each of you has demonstrated exceptional qualities. I regard you as a member of my family. Consequently, it is challenging to consider the subsequent steps. I paused to brush away a tear as I proceeded. I've sold the company. They looked at me in surprise. However, nothing has changed with regard to your roles, with the exception of Anna, who will take on some of my responsibilities and receive a corresponding raise. Despite their surprise, they started congratulating Anna, recognizing her hard work and recognizing her worthiness. Anna, please come talk to me after the meeting, they said. I mentioned that there are a few topics that we ought to talk about. With the future, I will continue to be active with the company, but only in a consulting capacity, and I may even sell shares on occasion. I don't want to interfere with your sales, I assured her. They were all relieved that I would continue to be present, albeit on an irregular basis. George was present as we exited the meeting. Hey, why was I not included in the meeting? He was taken aback. I clarified that it was intended for personnel only, and you are not an employee. He appeared to be taken aback. He stated, I have observed the cars have arrived. I shall commence servicing them. There is no requirement. They have already been prepared for sale. I responded with firmness, which caused him to be taken aback. However, I consistently inspect the vehicles, he insisted. George, I have sold the business, and the new proprietor is interested in pursuing a different course of action. I notified him, suppressing my fury. I will reserve that for a subsequent day. I maintained brevity, acknowledging that there are instances in which less is more. He exclaimed, I cannot believe you sold the business, making it about himself. What is the next course of action? Your check for the previous 2 weeks' work is available for your collection. It did not amount to much. I bluntly stated that Anna rarely employed your services. He had been anticipating the opportunity to work on the vehicles, however, this was not to be. I did not experience any pity. I simply desired the opportunity to express my genuine opinion of him. I requested that Anna maintain the confidentiality of our conversation. During our conversation, "Kurt, I will never disclose any information that you do not wish to know," she assured me. "The strategy is as follows. I have established companies that are registered in Nevada. The parking lot is acquired by one party, while the company is acquired by the other. I am the sole shareholder of both entities. I will eventually divorce Jenna and guarantee that she does not inherit the business." "For what reason?" she inquired. "I have relocated. I have not informed Jenna yet, but I will not be returning. George was the subject of her affair. Carrie is not my daughter, in actuality. My suspicion is that she is George's. I am uncertain as to whether Jenna is aware.